This episode contains mature language and situations. Listener discretion is advised.
Descent into
Part 4. Hell Season. You're up to something, John. I can see it in your eyes. Like I could see it in hers.
James, you have to stop being so paranoid, my friend. Besides, what's it to you anyway? Shouldn't you be more concerned with your own fate, what with the imminent arrival of Patricia the Ball Breaker? James glances towards the ground, rubbing the back of his neck with his right hand.
I don't think I can do it, John.
What the hell are you talking about?
They've made it even harder. Didn't you get the memo? I had my doubts before, but what they're asking of us now? It's abhorrent. Depraved.
John eyes the untouched memo on his desk, sitting on top of the unopened project. But you know it'll happen if you don't. These are the cards we've been dealt, James. We don't have a choice.
Yes. Yes, we do. And my choice is an action. To take whatever punishment comes. It's what I deserve. I don't believe I'm truly evil.
James's tears are the first sign of real emotion John has seen since arriving in this godforsaken limbo. He looks like a child caught smoking on school grounds, but the man murdered his wife and children and then took a permanent vacation.
All the anger and rage at the deceit, it just boiled my blood. I started to shake, and the rest is just a blur. I remember my tears pattering against their pillowcases. I remember the muffled screams and my children's soft hands flailing against me. I sat crying for hours afterwards, looking through old photographs, wondering what possessed me. And then I put the noose around my neck.
John opens his mouth to speak, but can't find words.
I'm an animal, John. I deserve what's coming. I see their faces all the time. When I eat, when I sleep, when I breathe. I can't pretend any longer that I'm okay with this. I did wrong, yes. But I refuse to become part of their army of evil.
John sees the faces of his victims too, but revels in it. Plays the scene back in slow motion. Every scream, each gurgling of death. James, I don't think this is...
You can't talk me out of this. I'm telling you, this is you are my only friend around here. And whatever you're up to, I hope it works out for you. But I'm done. Finito. Ready for the pit.
There's an awkward silence as James wipes the tears from his face, making sure nobody else sees his moment of weakness. He looks as far removed from evil as possible, full of remorse and self-hate. Every diaper changed. Time spent playing with the kids when he got home exhausted from work. The romantic meals he cooked for Lisa. The laughter, the tears, all of it. Gone in a moment of blind rage.
I better go. I hope it works out for you, friend. I really do.
John thinks about calling after him, but instead watches him walk away, shoulders dropped and destined for eternal damnation. His words stung, no doubt, made him evaluate his own journey, but weakness is the catalyst for wrong decisions, and John refuses to kneel for it anymore. He swivels around to the mirror, flipping it around to the two children, Eric and Rebecca. "He's here," Eric says, giving his new friend a gentle nudge. An old stream glistens down her face, and her eyes are still full of questions. How's the stammer, Eric? Good, Father. Much better.
Why? Why did you do that to my family? Why did you make them bad?
Rebecca! It's been a week, and John still can't get through to her. She looks at him with such hate. All he wanted to do was save her. It's okay, Eric. She's confused, angry, just like you were. You'll understand one day, Rebecca, I promise.
But my family is dead. I know it was you. You turned them.
What we're doing is much bigger than that, Rebecca. The world you once belonged to is full of hate, full of people ready to take you down. They hide in the shadows, watching, lurking, preying on weakness. I'm here to take care of you now, though. I'm your salvation.
You're the devil. I can see it in your eyes.
Rebecca, please! No, I'm not the devil, Rebecca. But hopefully we'll get to meet him. I have one path to walk, and I'm walking it and taking you with me. We'll be a family soon. Comfortable, strong, immortal.
I don't want you to be my family!
He's here to help us, Rebecca. I feel safe here, and my stammer's gone.
But we were okay. We were happy once.
It never lasts. Trust me, Rebecca, you'll thank me one day.
Never!
We're nobody back there. Little balls of anxiety bouncing from one disappointment to the next. Who's going to take a piece from me this time? Who's going to screw me over today? But here, well, we're the ones running the show. We can make people our puppets, bring the creatures from our nightmares to life. We are the fear.
What happened to you to make you like this?
Her words land hard. The rage still burns, stoked by flashbacks to that night and all the times life did him wrong. But there's an accompanying niggle of uncertainty, confusion, self-doubt, weakness. Angrily, he flips the mirror around to the carnage of his old town, where distrust, resentment, and anger are rife. Humanity at its worst, and a reminder of why he's doing all of this. There's still much to do. Fires burn. People tremble inside their homes, armed with whatever they can find. If they're lucky, guns. Summer heat helps fuel the rage, but the clock is ticking, and Patricia will be here soon. What does a child know about life, anyway? Uncertainty is just an unlit ember now that he watches in the mirror, floating down towards the dry ground. Rebecca needs a project of her own, something to focus on, something that will bring them closer together. It's time to bring the other one in. Squinting into the sunlight that pours through the threadbare curtains, Trevor kicks wildly at the sheets, only managing to tangle his legs up further. Cursing, he pushes himself up, peeling away the dampness of the fabric. Damn this fucking weather. Birds whistle through the wide-open window, and he wonders how they could be so chirpy when the day promises only further unrelenting heat and another day without his daughter. He picks up the bottle from next to the picture of her on the bedside table and waits patiently for the last few drops to fall across his tongue. He doesn't want to forget a single detail of her face. The thought terrifies him. It would mean that she's beginning to fade, that he was in some way letting go of the belief she is safe and well. 4 days have passed since her disappearance, and the police have nothing. But it's hardly surprising. Anything goes out there at the moment. You can hear the violence through the window, smashing glass, shouting and screaming. It's the perfect soundtrack for what people have started to call hell season. The drought doesn't help. Hottest summer on record. Random fires burning, some no doubt deliberately lit. Amid the craziness, there's the looting and stealing. Food, water, liquor, anything people can get their hands on. As he runs his finger across her goofy smile, a knot develops in the pit of his stomach, and he bites down hard on his lip to stifle the tears. Chances are slim, the doctor had said. 3 in 1,000. There wasn't enough oxygen getting through to her brain, resulting in impaired cognitive abilities. Trevor can leave the room, come back a few minutes later, and she will be ridiculously pleased to see him, as if he's been gone for days. Everything is new, a playground of innocence. He has to believe she's still alive, but... He drives his fist through the plasterboard. They kept her home to avoid the bullying. Perhaps it was also their selfish fear of being judged. They tried to teach her things, but Janet used to get frustrated with how little stuck. Katie would find the whole thing hilarious, which only added to the exasperation. Even when the doctors broke the news, they hoped. They hoped they'd made a mistake. They hoped she might grow out of it. And then they hoped for a miracle. Regardless, Katie captured his heart. But Janet couldn't come to terms with it. Couldn't bring herself to love their child. A cloud of depression swallowed her.
I don't think I can do this, Trevor.
A week later, she packed a case and took off to God knows where. The divorce papers came in the post not long after. Never heard from her again. He's still not sure how someone could do that, but from what he's witnessing right now about human behavior, he guesses it's not too difficult to comprehend. Katie turns 12 next week. 10 minutes he was gone, just to check the traps. They're getting so many animals at the moment, wildlife being forced from the fires looking for water and food. He left her watching cartoons and chasing a butterfly that had got in through the window. When he came back with 3 juicy rabbits, the TV was playing to itself. Nobody saw or heard anything. When he knocked on doors, most of the neighbors shouted threats through the makeshift shutters for him to leave or be shot. The same people he shared a beer with during warm spring evenings. "Where are you, Katie?" It's so hot. Hotter than some can bear, and it's driving people to do crazy things. Fueled on liquor and resentment, people are taking their misery out on their partners and kids. Trevor thinks it's more than just the heat, as if the town is turning evil. You only have to read the news. That young boy that killed all those children. The man that stabbed his family to death and slit his own throat. The woman that almost split her daughter in half with an axe. No, something bad is in the air. He's seen fights between what he would call sensible men and women start over nothing, resulting in someone pulling a knife and turning insides out. Fear rules. In the bathroom, he splashes his face with water and traces his fingers across the black circles. An atlas of red lines is developing across the bridge of his nose, which he knows is down to the amount of liquor he's putting away. But it's the only way he can cope, blanking out the bad thoughts. "I'll never give up on you," he utters, trudging down the stairs. Trevor squints as white light pours into the lounge, highlighting the abundance of dust particles floating through the air. He collects yesterday's plate full of rabbit bones and tries to stifle a sneeze, but it forces its way through, sending a bolt of searing pain across his forehead. Undeterred, a fly maintains its mission of annoyance as he makes his way through to the kitchen. It's not a pretty sight. Pots stacked high, bins overflowing with beer cans and empty packets of food. The refrigerator's coolness provides some relief, and he lingers there for a while, staring at the bar of white chocolate sitting on the second shelf. Katie's shelf. Grabbing one of the 4 remaining beers, he unlocks the patio door and steps out onto the warping deck, his head thumping in protest once again as brightness and heat fall across him. The butterfly stands out immediately against the colorless dead flowers. It rests on the rock that has Katie's initials scrawled across it in faded blue paint. The colors of the wings are ever-changing, fluorescent, and mesmerizingly beautiful. Reds, greens, and yellow so vibrant, they transcend human description. It's gone.
What the?
Squinting into the sun, he snaps his head left and right and takes a step forward.
Where did you?
As the butterfly emerges from its camouflage, still resting on the rock, The bottle smashes loudly, sending cool liquid across his toes. Hairs stand on the back of his neck, and the ever-present knot in his chest strikes with vigor. "Katie?" He blinks hard, but her face still impossibly monopolizes the back of the butterfly's wings. The yard starts spinning, a montage of dullness, haunted by the wingspan of color. As he puts a foot out to stop himself from falling, the butterfly lifts from the rock and elegantly propels itself to the top of the fence. "Wait," he whispers. He takes a step towards it, and the butterfly lifts 3 inches from the wood. Each time he tentatively moves forward, it moves that little bit further out of reach. "I'm going mad. Must be trauma. The heat?" Scrambling up the side of the fence and ignoring the splinters, he watches the butterfly land on top of the gate of the house behind. He gives chase, wincing as bare feet cover scorching ground, and cursing as his toe connects with a kid's tricycle left out near the patio. Oh! The bell sets off a chorus of barks from hungry dogs, and a head pops out from the window behind.
"Get off my property or I'll blow your fucking brains out!"
He hardly hears the words, too focused on finding the butterfly. Relief kicks in as he spots it heading towards the Ambrosia's place. His feet are on fire as he lumbers across to another front yard, wheezing, sweat dripping down his back. He leapfrogs the gate as more yelling emerges from within the wooden shack.
"You don't believe me, motherfucker? I got a bullet with your name on it, son of a bitch! You got the fuck off my property!"
Sprinting down the side of the house, he clambers over another fence, keeping his eyes on the butterfly as it heads towards the woody area that used to belong to Max Becker before his heart attack. He watches the butterfly come to rest on the stone wall, just in front of the run-down and roofless, blackened barn. Ahead, the land is black and desolate. He edges forward, but once again it takes off, heading towards the canopy of the first line of trees. Wincing as scratchy, dried grass pierces the underside of his foot, a wave of panic washes over him as the butterfly vanishes from sight within the denseness of the forest. Frantically, he scans the trees, but the white light from the sun peppers his vision with black dots. It's eerily quiet. No scampering of feet. No breeze floating through. Shit. And through the floaters that are beginning to settle, he sees it. Less than 10 feet away, resting on the soil. Its camouflage of brown slowly gives, and some pink is washing through to the outside of the wings. Within seconds, the butterfly sports a flaming red spread that fades the rest of the scene into a monochrome photo. It begins to switch through a multitude of vivid colors, finally settling to the one he saw in the garden. Katie's unmistakable bright blue eyes projecting from the center. As he begins to approach, it holds its ground. Each step he takes, he expects it to flutter away, extending the bizarre pursuit. He's so close now, but he has no idea what he's supposed to do with it.
Where is she?
As he steps forward, the ground caves beneath his feet, and he hears the snap of brittle branches. His stomach drops, and he lets out a strange and garbled cry as the blackness swallows him. Instinctively reaching out to the earth in front, he pushes back against the dry soil lining of the makeshift burrow, managing to slow his descent a little. And now he's free falling. He lands in a heap, letting out a cry as a bolt of intense pain explodes in his ankle, sending painful reverberations echoing through his spine. Nursing his leg and wincing at the feedback it offers, he stretches his arms out blindly, scraping his fingers against the soil lining. He takes a cautious step forward, relieved that the ankle isn't broken. Hurts like hell, though. The air is tainted with the unmistakable sweet and rancid smell of death. Flies buzz somewhere close, adding to the raucousness of the blood that pounds in his ears. He realizes that he's trembling.
Katie!
Running his hands along the dry and earthy wall, he looks up towards the only source of light, and his stomach lurches as he guesses the opening to be over 7 meters above. Within the almost perfect circle, the butterfly hovers elegantly and innocently, showing off its arsenal of colors. A shudder runs down his spine as he eyes the rim of the burrow, at least 2 meters above his head. well out of reach. Warily continuing to inspect his surroundings, he finds the walls of the tunnel flawlessly smooth. No imperfections or indentations, aside from the half a dozen rabbit-sized holes that puncture the bottom section and undoubtedly lead back to the black ash above. Ahead and behind is only darkness. It's only slightly cooler than the surface. He shuffles forward again, ducking, but not needing to, and grimacing as another sharp pain surges through his ankle. The roof above is perfectly arched, with no rough edges, too perfect to be made by anything but humans? The walls either side offer some consolation that this void is more than just a makeshift tomb, but as he leaves the ray of light behind, he feels weak and vulnerable. Continuing to blindly feel his way along the lining of the tunnel, the putrid scent of animal carcasses is undoubtedly getting stronger. He'd recognize that smell anywhere. A hunter all his life, even more so during hell season. Glancing over his shoulder, he eyes the circular patch of light on the ground and feels drawn back towards it, as though it represents a small area of sacred ground where no harm can fall. Regardless, he carries on, holding his arms out like wings and giving himself to the darkness. Combined with the stifling heat, the smell sends his stomach into turmoil, but he tries his best to ignore it and pushes forward. The optimist in him imagines Katie to be alive, that perhaps the butterfly was sent to bring him back to her. A message from God, perhaps. Perhaps God made this tunnel. Perhaps he's down here, hiding in shame from what is happening above.
Katie!
A scuttling noise ahead stops Trevor in his tracks, heart pounding and holding his breath. A bead of sweat runs down the side of his cheek, and he feels its path vividly as though all nerve endings are charged. The scampering stops. He waits. A shiver runs down his spine as he arches his neck, listening intently for movement above the sound of the blood pounding in his ears and the now faint drone of flies. There it is again. He lets out a quiet breath and continues down the tunnel. He increases pace with each step, no less afraid, but at least getting more comfortable with his surroundings. The ground offers no surprises, no jutting edges or bumps, and that fills him with even more hope. Perhaps she is down here, with the good people, waiting for evil to leave town. Either way, the butterfly brought him down here for a reason, and he intends to see it through. The echoing cry startles him, but he carries on. Not too far away, he hears the sound of wings flapping, and more scampering of feet across dry soil. There, a light. He watches something small scuttle across it. A mouse, perhaps, or rat? Slowing pace, he edges towards the circle of white, breathing heavily without smelling, and swatting at the ever-increasing mass of flies. The light offers hope, and at least a break from the overwhelming darkness. Perhaps even a way out. Would he take it? What if she was down here somewhere, alone, hungry and thirsty? As he gets closer, disappointment begins to settle. The opening is even bigger than the first, and the human-sized burrow finishes at least 3 meters from the ground.
Katie!
He's at a junction. In addition to the path ahead, there are 2 more openings either side of him, with the same flawlessly carved entrances.
The fuck is this place?
He remembers reading about tunnels like this in books, like those they used to build during wars. He basks in the light for a while, replenishing his capacity for the oppressive darkness. The air is still rancid, tainted only by the faint smell of smoke from the surface. A thought enters his head that he might be trapped down here forever, that this might become his new home, until thirst gets him.
Get a grip, Trevor.
It's difficult to gauge distance now, so he starts to count his steps. At least this way he'll have a benchmark of sorts. 30 more strides, and he's in complete darkness once again, haunted by the thought of premature burial and 1,000 other paranoia-fueled musings. Did he really see her face on that butterfly? Could it have been a grief-induced hallucination, or some emotional projection of guilt or despair? One thing he does know is that nobody's going to come looking for him. and it will only be a matter of hours before the savages raid and burn his house. Something brushes against his foot. He freezes again, waiting for the sound of scampering feet. Nothing. Nervously, he squats down, reaching out blindly to the earth in front and behind. His fingers dance across the soil until they connect with something soft. He recoils at first, thinking it might be a dead animal, or worse, something alive. Feeling his way across the ground, he finds it again. It's been 2 weeks since she's been gone. God knows he's tried to prepare himself for the worst, crying until tears have run dry and screaming until his voice ran out. But as he runs his fingers down the thin plastic spike, he's hit with a wave of despair that leaves him feeling empty and more alone than anyone ever should. It's Katie's rainbow unicorn, the one she would never be without. The stench is getting stronger as he marches forward. Katie's stuffed toy still held in his extended left arm. A thick cloud of flies buzz around his head, some of them landing. He whips his right hand across, but they're relentless little fuckers, and getting worse. He spots another ray of light in the distance and launches into a slow jog. That noise. Animal cries? He marches on, hanging on to the belief that he may still find Katie wandering the tunnels, searching for her unicorn and singing nursery rhymes. She'd be dead by now, fool. No food, water. You're kidding yourself. What's that? Something ahead, in the light. Fuck off! He screams at the flies as he slams his palms against the tunnel walls. His feet begin to squelch into a sticky softness, and there's the occasional gentle snapping sound from somewhere close, but he doesn't stop to investigate. Countless flies bombard from all directions, and the acoustics of the tunnel amplifies their onslaught. It feels like they're in his head. The smell is becoming overpowering, and he finally doubles over and gags, stringy saliva extending towards whatever horrors lie beneath. He can't breathe. There are flies all over his face, on the back of his neck, in his hair. He straightens out, wafting his left hand futilely, his right hand brushing against something wet and sticky on the otherwise dry soil lining of the wall. Please, no. Head down, feet sinking into whatever lines the floor. He knows there's no turning back. Even from here, he can see the white bone that extends from the shoe. He's no longer marching, the thought of what lies ahead bringing him into a more conservative and wary pace. As he steps into the blood-soaked opening, imperfectly lit by the rays of light from the much clumsier-looking trap above, the crow doesn't budge. It eyes him warily for a second and turns back to its meal, diving its head into the human cadaver's chest and pulling out some of the stringy innards with its beak. He counts 5 more crows. There are other smaller birds, too, perched on rib cages and pecking at the remaining flesh. Breathing no longer feels automatic, each breath forced and labored. The entire area is teeming with life, none of it human. The humans are spread across the floor in a sinister banquet. He watches in disbelief as the area's fauna greedily feasts on discolored flesh. Wild cats and rats sit side by side, tearing at half-eaten corpses. Insects crawl in and out of seeping fleshy holes and a long gray bone sparsely covered with what used to be living matter. He watches as a millipede makes its way through the eye hole of a partially eaten head, and as the crow continues to peck at the surrounding flesh, preferring it to the crawling insect. One of the bodies appears fresh, and it's the bigger cats that feed on that one, their faces engorged with blood and whatever else. He's seen cats similar to these before, raiding bins and searching the streets for scraps. Before Katie disappeared, they had one in the yard. Katie came running in, screaming for help, but begged him not to shoot it when he picked up the rifle from under the bed.
Cat just hiss,
she had said. Suddenly, the opening explodes into a unison of red as the butterflies drop their camouflage. Hundreds of them decorate the decaying bodies, each of them with their proboscis plunged into the glistening openings. The subsequent synchronized shift of colors lights up the area's comparative blandness with a frenzy of ever-changing beauty that only fills Trevor with a further disconnect from the surface. They settle for a subdued orange light. 3 of the bodies are most certainly adults, and one of the partially covered skeletons is only 2 feet long. He runs his eyes over the other 2, but the torn clothing doesn't match what Katie was wearing that day. Deep down, he knows she's gone, but still. A thunderous, high-pitched squeal sends his ears ringing and his head snapping to the right. Small particles of dust rain from the ceiling, falling against the back of his neck and causing an exaggerated adrenaline-charged shudder. Some of the animals turn and hiss, while others continue with their meal. From the darkness, a rattling breathing emerges, slow and deep. He readies himself to run, but where to? He's not even sure his legs will move on command. The breathing is getting louder, but he can't see anything. He sinks to the floor, unicorn still in his left hand, and begins crawling towards one of the chewed-up bodies, arching himself around the circle of light so as not to give away his presence. The larger of the 2 gray cats feeding on his chosen cadaver stiffens, turns its ears back, and bares its sharp teeth. Trying to keep out of striking distance, he continues edging around, eyeing more of the smaller burrows that line the walls of the opening. Still nothing but ominous breathing from the darkness. As the large cat decides he's not a threat after all and gets back to its meal, Trevor shifts in place behind the cadaver, trying to convince himself that it was the acoustics of the tunnel that made the cry so disturbing and terrifying. He studies the maggots squirming inside the remaining flesh on the back of his chosen hiding spot, thinking the flies that crawl across his skin most likely partied on these very remains. He brings his hands to his lips, taking in a breath, afraid he might swallow one of the dirty little fuckers. An intense itch on his right cheek is followed by a sharp sting, but just as he's about to shake off the culprit, 2 large yellow eyes materialize in the distance, and another intense squeal echoes through the tunnel. Disturbing more dry dirt from the ceiling. Shit. Glancing behind, mouth devoid of any saliva, he checks his escape route in the left tunnel. Can it see me? He knows most animals have exceptional vision in the dark. Oh fuck. His mind races. All those animals sat together and sharing the kill, like a communal waterhole of sorts, but rather an underwater lake of human organs and fluids. He assumes it's because they've been driven underground. By the fires? By us? Even the butterflies are feeding, sucking grotesqueness through their tubes. What happened to you, Katie? It's getting closer. Golden eyes swaying almost hypnotically from side to side, and its ominous, slow panting filling the area. Trevor slowly begins to edge backwards without taking his gaze away, dragging his putrid makeshift cover along with him, praying not to be seen. Perhaps only inches from the ceiling, the eyes continue to draw close, and there's an accompanying scraping sound that resounds in his core. This is no ordinary animal. Under the blanket of darkness and acrid odor, Trevor continues his retreat until he's finally through the archway of the tunnel and immersed in darkness again. Peering through the half-eaten ribs of his cover, he waits for whatever's about to step into the circle of light. It's the claws he sees first, 2 inches long. They look as sharp as knives. Dark fur covers most of the body that stands at least 6 feet tall, and there's something on its right shoulder. It lumbers closer. He readies himself. As the creature steps into the light, the crow flaps its wings but remains perched next to the hairless head. Instinctively, Trevor shrinks back further into the darkness. In contrast to the rest of the short-haired body, the face appears hard and scaly, and there's a series of small symmetrical lumps that glisten in the rays of light that fall across them. The creature sounds its deafening squeal again, and Trevor feels it running along his spine. The mouth is elongated, housing rows of razor-sharp teeth. It has no nose or ears that he can see. Coiled around the creature's left leg is a snake that lifts its head, flicking its tongue at the surrounding air. The creature bends and begins to feel its way across to the fresher of the bodies. It's blind. It's fucking blind. But he's sure the beady eyes of the crow are staring directly at him. The bird performs an agitated sidestep and tilts its head. Just as the creature sinks its claws into the leg that remains, the crow gives out a short, sharp caw, and the snake begins to hiss. Back to its feet with a frustrated squeal, the creature begins to lurch in Trevor's direction. Urgently, Trevor scrambles to his feet and begins to run. No longer counting his steps, he sprints into the darkness, wondering how something so vile could come to exist. A hybrid, perhaps, that's managed to evade discovery, living underground and dining on death. And one of the bird and the snake that... And it dawns on him. The crow and the snake are its eyes, ears, and smell. They're working together. Christ! The butterfly, too. Offering its beauty and canvas of loved ones to entice others into the darkness. And then they feed. Nature working together to survive the destruction that humans are so adept at bringing. His lungs are screaming, and it feels as though the walls of the tunnel are closing in. He feels guilty to be afraid of death with Katie still missing, but right now he's yearning for the surface, to be out of the darkness. Stifling air offers little respite as he breathes in the heat around him and continues running into the black void. And he hears her voice, impossibly close.
Pop goes weasel.
Katie!
Daddy!
There's a flash of white light as searing pain explodes across his forehead and nose. He stumbles backwards, reeling away from the dry soil wall that he just connected with. Creasing to the floor, he tentatively reaches for his nose, grimacing as his fingers run across the twisted mess that sends warm liquid over his lips. Nausea begins to wash over him, and blackness sweeps in from all directions, but he wills himself to stay conscious, fighting the urge to let it take him. Slowly, the butterflies begin to reveal themselves, polluting the darkness with a phosphorescent sequence that illuminates the walls of this dead end. Each of them has their feeding tubes plugged into his daughter's skin.
Katie!
His eyes cloud with tears as he staggers across, swatting at the butterflies that have changed their pattern once more, his own face now adorning the wings. That's why she followed all that way. He brings her in close, never wanting to let go again.
No, Daddy. They keep me alive.
From somewhere behind, the crow lets out a shrill, and Trevor hears the faint sound of claws raking across the walls. We're getting out of here, Katie. Pain swells across his forehead as he forces himself up, frantically continuing to slap the butterflies away. One by one, they leave his daughter's skin, taking a little bit of life away each time. Katie?
Tired, Daddy.
I know what it's like to lose a daughter, Trevor. The voice is in his head, in the walls, everywhere. I wanted to give you the chance to say goodbye. Something I never had. Who are you? What have you done to my daughter? I'll take good care of her, I promise. She'll flourish here. No, please. You fucking bring her back to me. He watches the sparkle slowly fade from his daughter's eyes. Her smile remains. always smiling.
Katie!
Love you, Daddy.
Please no! Bring her back!
The last of the butterflies take off. His tears sting.
Bring her back!
A feeling of utter hopelessness lodges itself in his stomach. As he slides down the side of the tunnel next to his daughter, he lets out his own high-pitched squeal that fills the tunnel, bringing another shower of dust. Ahead, the scraping stops. An eerie silence prevails. He's ready to die now, but not like this. He slots the unicorn into Katie's hand, kisses his daughter's forehead, and prays that the creature has turned back. Licking its lips, the large gray cat slowly saunters through the opening, followed by a flurry of activity as more of the carnivorous fauna begins to fill the room. Something drips on his head. He looks up to see his predator, yellow eyes, redundant but evil, saliva dripping from the mouth stuffed with barbed teeth. The snake hisses. The crow caws. At least he got to see her one last time.
Descent into Hell, Part 4, Hell Season. Written by Mark Towse, with performances by Graham Rowat, Sarah Ruth Thomas, and me, Jason Wilson. Musical composition was by J.M. Scherf. Episode artwork, web development, and creative direction by Cassie Petit. Social media and Patreon management by Brooks Bigley. Videography is by Hale Scherf. And audio engineering and sound design was by me, Jason Wilson. Number 4, patrons. Number 4. You were the motivation behind this miniseries. Keep that in mind. We can never thank you enough for your support. Seriously. And we also would like to say thank you for those of you who gave us a 5-star rating and a review. We appreciate it, as those reviews keep us at the top of the charts and makes it easier for more twisted souls to find the show. And The Grey Rooms is also streaming for free on Spotify, so just get the Spotify app or open the browser and search The Grey Rooms. Y'all know that we love you here at The Grey Rooms, and we want to do as much as we can to give back to you, make it worth your while, in the only way we know how. And we have a lot more in store for you this season, and we truly hope that you're ready and that you'll enjoy it. You know, you can find out more about us on social media. You can find us on Instagram, YouTube, Reddit, Twitter, and Facebook. And we took your advice and extended an olive branch to all of the tortured souls who have passed through the rooms. Our emotional support group is always looking to help you with all of your emotions and needs. Yeah, needs. And don't forget about our merch store. It's full of epic designs and logos for you to sport, showing the world that you are a survivor of these very rooms. And all of this can be found in the show notes or on our website at thegrayrooms.com. And once more, if you have not joined the Discord channel by now, really, what are you waiting on? Seriously, what have I told you 3 other times? The party is happening there. The community is happening there. If you are not there, you're missing out. Join us today. Hit the show notes, click the link, join our Discord, come say hi. You will not regret it. We have one more of these left for you this week. We truly do hope you've enjoyed this mini-series that was written by a very talented author, Mark Towse. We really enjoy working with Mark, and we really enjoyed putting this together for you. So hopefully you're ready for the finale of the mini-series Descent into Hell tomorrow. So till then, we'll see you later. Bye.